So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual launch of Reinvent Down Under. And in this event, which is broadcasted to LinkedIn Live, also at the same time on my YouTube and on my Facebook, I'm joined here by three guests, which will be on stage, and I will introduce them as we go. As we have Ritika from New Zealand, we have Sigrid from Australia, and we have Jedediah from the US. Where on this side of the globe, in the south, we are heading into autumn, what we just compared, and Jedediah is sweating with 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a normal Australian temperature, but maybe a couple of months ago. That was quite funny. So let's see how many are joining at this stage, and if anyone of you from those who are presenting as well might be also checking on their LinkedIn in parallel on another computer, you might even see that we shall be live, because that is a tricky thing on a LinkedIn Live compared to a Zoom, because we typically don't fully see our audience. But that is fine. I see that it's already live and that is going on. Okay, wonderful. So what I would like to say at this beginning, while I'm uploading a bit of material, we will have a mix of, on one side, a couple of topics, what I would like to go through on my slides about this book called Reinvent Down Under. It's already here. And then I will have an interview with the three of you, step by step. And I'm very much excited to hear what we all have to say. And that is a very interesting conversation. By this format, I'm a big fan of launching books, not just making them available, especially when a book is personal, as is the case here on this situation. So this book called Reinvent Down Under, I came on the idea maybe a year ago. I have done a larger book launch in 2023 for my first self-published business book, which I called Connect and Act. And that was inside Sydney in a hotel where I'm working on the board. And this feeling of bringing a product into life, surrounded by people who we know, like, and trust, that is actually something which is very nice. And then I thought, last year, my birthday, 4th of May, happened to be on a Sunday. Not a good idea for a live launch event. So I recognized that this year will be a Monday. Monday is good for events. Not many people are doing anything. I thought that would perfectly. So, but which book would I have? And then I also calculated that I came to Sydney in May 2016. So that was awesome, to start a new life. So it basically would hit this year 10 years of being in Sydney. And that was my idea to say, okay, when that is the case, then I'm very happy to launch a book like this on this very day. The only thing, the book didn't exist. So I had to write not only the book, but come up with a story. And this story, that is the one that we are here also about in this occasion. So what we have is the book. You can see it up there on my shelf over here. Some of the other books are like there. That is Connect and Act, my LinkedIn book, Lead Not Manage. And I started to write more books. So in total, it is actually now book number 33. Time flies. I started writing books, I think, in 1999. And therefore, I'm very happy that I learned that a book launch is something very special. And that's what I would like to do today. So what I'm going to share with you is a couple of things while I'm uploading everything about the files that I would like to share, but I can share it also directly in form of the slides here directly into the studio. Let me do this and share that. And please, anyone let me know that that would work. So what I want to share is this. Can anyone see this agenda, what I would like to plan for today? Anyone can note about that? So yeah, yes. You can see. So that's fine. If I go into presenting mode, if I'm lucky, it shows it also properly. Hurrah, here we go. So what I would like to go through, and maybe I do it on this slide mode only, quickly as an introduction. So I place it like this, that we have the introduction, why I moved down under, a bit of explanation for that. Then inspiration. Then I will have Ritika Jedediah and also Sigrid that we can talk about certain things. And integration will be the last part where I show how that all fits together. I will add maybe a link on the LinkedIn Live with the material, with the deck and so on. If you would like to comment, please do on the LinkedIn side, or if you are looking from Facebook, do it from there. And I will share something about that later in a post. As this is a LinkedIn version, I cannot share by email because I do not have from everyone the email addresses, but that's fine. And there is a little bit on the end because there is one prize to win. Yeah, that's good. So let's go. So a couple of shout outs from, I had a look to everyone who registered for the event today, and I'm very happy that one of those who shall be now in attendance on the LinkedIn Live side is my good mate Bassam. On that 4th of May 2016, my birthday, I attended a networking event in the evening, full in jet lag. So what? And that was a professional networking event where I met not only the visa agent who gave me the right advice that it is possible with 45 to still make a big move. Perfect. And she showed me also how, but also Bassam. Bassam is a professional working like myself in the software industry as a customer success manager. Later, we even worked in the same building and we kept together in a sense of finding ourselves looking for some work, having work, and going to industry conferences and even playing soccer together. So Bassam is my first mate from Sydney from the very first day. And it looks like he's in audience as well. Very happy for that. So then the next one I would like to look as well is who also said he would be there. That is my good mate Paul. Paul I met here quickly after moving in. He used to work at Dropbox. He used to launch something like Dropbox Sign in marketing. So now he worked at an AI company long before we all knew what ChatGPT is all about. So that's Paul. Welcome as well. Then I also saw in the list of participants Louis. Louis is from Ireland. Louis worked at a company called Noggin. And in 2018, it was Louis to help me getting there. Not that that might be the most important job in my career, but there's a funny thing that comes to the books. I started to review books of other authors, long format articles on Medium, on my website, and I wanted to do interviews with authors. I've done now 43 or 44 of them. The first one is a book from Cian McLaughlin, Rebirth of the Salesman. And that was really helpful because out of this, Louis read that and said, Gunnar, actually, thank you for the review. I know Cian. You know what? We have a role and it looks like you would fit well. So he helped me getting this job, which was my start in the software as a service industry. Louis, many thanks. When I launched a book as a co-author called Lessons I Learned, then Louis also came. It was just 3 days in the new role. And I asked, what's your connection to books at all that you know this author? And the simple answer, we play soccer together. 2 Irish boys. I love that. So that is Louis. Hi, good to have you there. And Natalie, I already saw you in the call as well. So thank you for having you because Natalie is my, what do you call it, my coach who helps me on many things. And especially Natalie wrote a beautiful foreword for my last year book called Happy Habits. Thank you very much. Natalie is an expert in transition, and I recognize if someone's last name starts with Tran, that transition is only obvious, right? I think it makes sense. So Natalie, thank you and good to have you there. That's very good. Thanks for your comment already. So let's going on. Why I moved down under. So here on this photo, you can see first my mother in the middle, Gisa Habits, who now published 3 books with the age of 79. So never too late to write a winning book. And now she has 3 books on her, on a record. And when I've been 19, I thought, dear parents, I don't want to stay in Germany. I would like to make a move, but where? And my mom said, well, go to Switzerland. She loves skiing. She loves winter sports. Good. 17 years later, in 2016, I went back to my parents' house and I said, Mom, thank you for the idea. I'm now a proud Swiss. Where should I go next? And my dad said, you know, it was my dream always to move to Australia, but now I'm too old. I can't do it anymore. I love opera and I love seeing pictures from the opera house in Sydney. I said, okay, Dad, now that is exactly what I will do. So it's very funny. But there's one story why this happens. And that was a big, big kind of disruption. Because when you believe you work in corporations like I've done for Hewlett Packard, HP for 16 years, I thought everything is given, but then all of a sudden I got into a layoff. And when that happened, my wife Alexandra here on the right said, I will bake a cake for your boss. Finally, they kick you out. Because in her opinion, and rightfully so, she said, I've been too long inside, too long in the same company, too long in the same circles, seeing the world with the same view. Yes, it was a great journey, got me into from consultant to sales manager into international region, but the life is not everything there. So then it helped us to explore the world, and that exactly is what we have done. So this book, Reinvent Down Under, I wrote this on a journey of 7 steps. So let me guide you a little bit through this. So this first step, I called it the break. That is typically a trigger. And that trigger can be internal, it can be external. In my case, it was external. And I realized that the safety net that I've had is actually not there anymore. So therefore, adding a couple of quotes from the book as well on these topics. So I said, in my case, what began as a moment of disruption created a pause that could no longer be ignored. What once felt stable started to move, and with it, your understanding of direction began to change. You recognize that what had shifted was not only your situation, but your relationship to it. The structure you relied on was no longer certain, and for the first time, you began to question what had been carrying you. The question marked the beginning of the movement, not through immediate action, but through awareness that something had changed, and that change required a different way of moving forward. That is this mindset work. Instead of saying, okay, lost the job, update the CV, send it in the world, and get job interviews. I have not done that. I thought a break, sabbatical would be a good idea. So, by the way, what you see here, that is not necessarily my situation in Europe, it's rather somewhere here in Australia, the country of sunset and of sunrises. Beautiful. So, that is actually the arrival that we've had. We spent 3 months on our break, our sabbatical in New Zealand, Ritika. That's where you are living now. We actually studied English in 99 in New Zealand when we knew each other only maybe half a year to figure out if we can survive together very far away from our regular surroundings, and that was actually very good. So we returned for 3 months, traveling the whole country, the trip of a lifetime. And we thought, what about moving? The only thing from a work point of view, most IT companies, IT vendors, who would run their operations for New Zealand, they're not based in Auckland. They're not based in Wellington or Dunedin. They're based actually in Sydney. So then we took a cruise around New Zealand to see the fjords, beautiful, but then it went to Hobart in Tasmania, to Melbourne, and to Sydney. And that here is exactly the arrival. And as soon as I stepped on the cruise ship in the morning, arriving, in that bridge, what I can see from here, Alessandra said, looks like you found your home. So then I call it pause, this step, where we really need to reflect and take a side away and think about it. So therefore, when the momentum stopped, the absence of structure revealed what had always been there, but rarely noticed. Direction had not disappeared. It had been hidden beneath movement and expectations. In the quiet of the pause, patterns began to repeat and meaning began to take shape. What first appeared as an interruption became recognition, and recognition made the next step visible. So the next step was how to figure that out. What can you really do when you reflect well enough, long enough that you are outside of your former identity? And that is the next step that is typically coming. So let's go into this one. And then I had the feeling that really Sydney pulled me in. So that is me standing here at the Sydney Opera House watching a performance of Carmen. The opera was really, really good. And then I had the feeling that the place pulls me more in. I came back for 2 months to study leadership at the Australian Institute of Management, and I had a place to go. And now, when you pay forward into karma, into the universe, something happens. My first day, before going to that networking event where I met Bassam, I saw an email from Dell. Hey Gunnar, thank you for your job interview. Can you come next one day for an interview? On the first day in Sydney, how does it make me feel? There is something I can make happen. That was really good. That was the starting point. And from that onward, how I prepared for that, I still used 2 years ago when I found my current role at Active Campaign. So that is a pull that happened. And this pull is really something that really gets us in. So for me, the key thing is this. What drew you forward was not necessarily a full plan, but a possible direction that continued to return. And once acknowledged, the next steps no longer felt like a risk, but like a continuation. I've done something to consider a move without having all answers, without having everything planned out. And that is the main thing also of the book, what I write about. And then came the question of the preparation. How can I make that happen? So that the tactical things like interviews, visa, finding out how to live here, and so on, and that becomes then a bit more tricky. So therefore, what I rather thought, it's really to get further onto the topic to prepare your mind more than only your action. And that is important. So I wrote it a bit like this. Along the way, you became more aware of what you were carrying, not only in terms of responsibility, but in how it influenced your decisions. Some of it provided grounding, while other parts required adjustment. So it's a good time for action to make something happen. One thing is important. We are never alone. So then what happened was I tapped into a network. I reached out to one person who I knew, a sales trainer, because I think it was his birthday. And he said, you're in Sydney, you need to talk to Peter Strohkop, who is one of sales book authors, who then connected me with others. So on this slide, that's from Melbourne, there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 are now published authors on books. In the middle, American one here, Larry Levine, he published a book about selling from the heart. So it's so different from hardcore. On the right-hand side, Graham Hawkins, one of the top gurus for sales. On the left-hand side, Mark McInnes, who spoke at my book launch event 3 years ago. He has a book called Tactical Pipeline. I think, that's one. Tactical Sales Pipeline. Unfortunately, he passed away in the meantime. We have Bernadette McClellan in the middle, who moved to the US. Jedediah, I need to introduce you to her. And that's building a network around experts, around particular book authors. Sometimes it draws me to that. It's very interesting. And it is this network. Without that, I would not be able to have this call today with so many joining, and particularly also with the guests that I have on stage. So that I have this in the book as well. And I wrote it something like this. Through interactions, relationships formed and lasted beyond single moments. Conversations deepened into connection, and gradually a network started to shape around a shared direction. Within that network, you found support, perspective, and encouragement that reduce the distance between hesitation and action, which shapes how you move forward within it. I heard of people who move to another country and don't manage to build a network. So that, I think, was the most important topic. So then the reset, to really make it happen, to get to the next topic. And you, of course, also ask someone for advice, or at least to listen. So this red kangaroo, of course, was better in listening than talking. But then lots of things really became clear to make that forward. And I said, through the process, clarity did not come from predicting what lies ahead, but from understanding what has already unfolded. What once felt fragmented began to reveal a pattern. That recognition created a different kind of trust, not in certainty, but in the continuity of movement. You no longer needed to see the full path in advance because you had learned to recognize as it emerges. It is like somebody said, you get more appetite while you're eating, and then the journey was a big, big passion to make that happen. And while all chapters started with the word the or the at the beginning, the last one, balance, I say imbalance, because that's really here. And this photo shows my citizenship ceremony last year in North Sydney with Carl, with Peter, and Colin, all three who are now from very, very early days, who are living here for ages, and all came also maybe as boys here to Sydney in good old days. So that is the part. So the last one here began as a personal search for direction, became a process of clear understanding of how movement unfolds. Through change, connection, and reflection, you learned that clarity develops over time. Your movement began to extend beyond yourself. What you built now allows others to move as well, not through instruction, but through presence. What remains is not a fixed outcome, but a way of moving forward that evolves. That's exactly that. If anyone has any comment on that journey so far, or might share their own in the comments, like Natalie, you did, so please share something already now. Would be good to see. But yeah, that is that. So how to write this book and where to do it? So here you can see this journey on the right-hand side of all of the 7 steps, how I put it together. That, by the way, is not ChatGPT. That is directly myself and Canva. And then on the left-hand side, you see the bar of the Sofitel the Swiss Hotel in Sydney. That's where I wrote big parts of my books. I really love writing in a bar, in a cafe, where there's a little bit of noise, where I'm kind of observing, but I can also be myself. So that really helped. I call it the reinvention readiness map. That exactly is the point. So before we go into the next step, a quick one. Maybe I can read something else quickly, which I placed in the middle of the book on page 72. That shows when you want to make a change, you need to have people, yes, but you need to also symbolically put your mind into action. And let me read quickly one thing. In moments of transition, it is tempting to look for new systems, methods, or structures that promise clarity. But often, what is needed is not something new, but something more fundamental. The idea behind working tools comes from those masters who built before us, not as instructions, but as symbolic guidance, not as a framework to follow, but as a memorable way to understand how movement takes shape. The chisel is a starting point. It is used to shape what is within reach. Small adjustments, repeated over time, gradually change the form of something larger. Reinvention rarely begins with a complete redesign. It begins with refinement. The plumb rule brings alignment as it keeps direction grounded. When movement accelerates, it is easy to drift. The plumb rule ensures that what you build remains connected to what matters. The compasses define space. They set the boundaries for exploration. They create structure without limiting movement. Within that space, direction can develop. Each tool serves a different purpose. Together, they create balance. Reinvention is a process of shaping, aligning, and defining. Once these elements are in place, movement becomes more than possible. It becomes intentional, and that changes everything. That is my one page called The Working Tools of Reinvention. I'm a big fan of architecture. I studied a lot about building of medieval cathedrals, and from these type of masters of stonemasons, I got these pieces of elements in my own words. And whenever you read in this book kind of lines which have 3 elements, then it is not because ChatGPT discovered the power of three, but I take it back to the days when Mozart composed his opera Magic Flute, which is full of the letter of three, so or the number of three, so it's already in there, and you can express so well things in threes. So long before any AI came about on the same idea. So, but now I would say it's time also to look into the interviews with our guests, and that is a part that I also enjoy. We had our call. So we had our meeting on Monday in the book launch in Sydney, and on that book launch, I had the pleasure of welcoming their four authors, partial authors, and we had a kind of discussion around that as well. So let's try to do a similar thing also now here with our guest. Before we do this, a quick one. I asked Claude just before the call today about the book. Not only that, Claude, I asked also ChatGPT, but Claude is actually pretty good in crafting nice paragraphs. It doesn't only talk about what the book is about, but it also talks, you can see in yellow, that I have a virtual launch planned, and the ghost contributors are Ritika, Sigrid, and Jedediah. Imagine that. AI really knows quite a lot from the beginning. Pretty cool, right? So big surprise for me that it already knows all of that one. But yeah, having said that, so then the first person I would rather like to have on stage as well would be Ritika. So let me go on Ritika only. So one moment, I place it like this, Ritika. So then here we are. You are unmuted. First of all, thank you for being here. We met in Auckland 2 months ago. We know each other for a couple of years, but now tell the audience quickly about yourself.
Kia ora, and thank you so much, Gunnar, for inviting me to be part of your book launch. Can I just say before I start that the 7 steps resonates so deeply. And your book, I'm sure anyone looking at a change in their life or who's been through a change in their life will absolutely identify with. So I am Ritika. Everybody, my name is Ritika Singh. Kia ora, namaste. Hello, wherever you are. I currently live in Auckland, in New Zealand. I am originally from India, and I moved here just about 2 decades, almost a couple of decades ago. I am an entrepreneur. I have a sales and marketing agency, and that's how I met Gunnar actually. And I also have a recruitment firm. And yeah, I've been through a few different bouts of reinvention, whether that's moving countries or whether that's moving jobs or changing careers. So yeah, and yeah, excited to tell you a bit more.
Yeah, wonderful. In particular, I know that when you also made this move 2 decades ago, I'm sure you had to reinvent yourself as well, not only from moving, but also that you now run your own business. And I bet when you came, that was not the case. So, what is for you reinvention from your own experience, and how did it feel actually for you?
Yeah, I mean it's there's a lot of different emotions that I go through, and it doesn't matter which reinvention experience we pick up. Going from being employed to having a business is definitely one. But I've also changed careers majorly. I had come to New Zealand as a student to train in aviation, and I did that, and then I changed careers completely. So it doesn't matter which kind of reinvention it is. To me, it's sort of been that intersection of a lot of excitement and discomfort, but very positive discomfort, where I know I'm cautiously optimistic. I know there's going to be bigger, better things, but there's always a bit of nervousness. And I don't know, Gunnar, if you felt this, but every single time I go through that phase of reinvention, I'm also quite tired because there's so much of information and learning and processing. It's actually quite a tiring journey. So for me, often that break, which is your first step in reinvention, for me, oftentimes that break comes after the reinvention as well. Once I become who I want to become, before I embark on that next step, that break is quite important. But yeah, it's quite an exciting place to be, but can be quite daunting if you haven't put the right anchors down.
Yeah, good one. And thank you also to put this type of break as an element. And you're right. it's never a once in a life journey only. So it will continue. You will have more elements like this one. So that for me is an important topic as well. So, but along the journey, I think you need to keep curiosity. So how are you doing this? That you keep on track and learn on your go.
Yeah, I think for me that some of it goes back to the kind of person I was, to the kind of upbringing or the nurturing I had as a child. I was always encouraged to be very curious and ask questions. Even if people couldn't answer my questions, I was always encouraged to ask the questions and learn more. I used to read a lot. And over life, I've realized that all of this has just carried through and has made me a very curious person. So traveling is a big part of that. Just like you, I love traveling. My partner loves traveling. And so traveling is quite an important part of our lives to learn about new things and new people and new traditions. Um, there's also a big element of this is meeting new people. So I think you know this, Gunnar, about me, that I actually really enjoy networking, and I enjoy meeting people and learning about their stories. Each person, whether they like to talk about it or not, or whether they're extroverts or not, each of us have a fascinating story, and there's so much to learn from people. So that's another thing that really keeps me curious, because one story can lead to 10 questions. So yeah, it's to me that travel and meeting people, it just keeps me curious and learning.
Okay, very much agree with that one. So a quick last question on that. What is your top advice for changing or reinventing, if there's just one thing you can give?
It's really hard to just give one thing, isn't it? It's that kind of thing. Reinvention is, I always think of it as transformation, because when you reinvent yourself, you change so much about yourself. Probably, you know, a few weeks ago, I went for an event by Mel Robbins. I think some of you all know who Mel Robbins is. She has one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And she spoke about this concept, which probably one of her guests told her about, possibly, but she spoke about this concept of when you see somebody, if you feel jealous, society has taught us that jealousy is negative. But in reality, we can flip that. When you see somebody and if you feel that sensation of being jealous, you can dig into that further and figure out why you're jealous. And it tells you what it is that you want. And it leads you to reinvention, because it leads you to that next step of how do I get better and bigger, and what do I want to work towards to be a happier person. So I think that it leads into a growth mindset. For me, the biggest thing for reinvention is having a growth mindset. If you can keep that mindset and keep that thinking, it will lead you to become a better version, a different version of yourself every day. And one thing I do want to add is, it's completely under your control. Reinvention and becoming a different person, a better version, whatever, it's all under your control. So if you do reinvent yourself and you don't like where you're at, it's your decision. You can go back to who you were, or you can reinvent further. So I think there's a lot of us that get nervous about reinvention and doing something different. But if we just look at it from a different perspective of growth, it can do a lot of magic in our lives.
I like that. Really resonate well with that. So thank you so much, Ritika. And you're right, it can do magic. And if not for me, I would still sit in Switzerland and doing the same thing or the same thing. And that is would be maybe rather the boring side of it. So therefore grateful. And thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then we have at the next person on the stage, we have Jedediah. So then I met Jedediah about maybe in 2024 at a world large stage of the largest back then marketing conference series in Sydney, and then also in Melbourne. And then later last year, we also met when also he encouraged me to become the master of ceremonies. But you are a show master, you are an actor, you are a composer, and also you are what I would call, or you call yourself actually, a cinematic alchemist. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Yes, my story is anything but boring. So I grew up in Palmdale, which is north of Los Angeles by a few hours. It's a little hot desert. Of course, I'm actually broadcasting in again from another hot desert. It's funny, we return to roots. That's something we may touch on a little bit later about how the story relates to the book. And when you take those pause moments, how sort of some of your past comes back resurfacing. But when I grew up in learning music and writing and art and all the creatives, I really grew up in my own world. You know, I was constantly building and creating and imagining things from scratch. So I didn't have major big social circles growing up at all. It was more about I was in my own world, in my own space, you know, because I was doing well in classes. When we had extra time, I would go sneak off to the band room and be doing more creative work constantly. And I took that with me all the way through into the college years and then to working at Skywalker Sound. And the way I got my first big job in the film industry was actually by being curious with the Curiosity Engine. I had Film Sound Hamburg, actually, interestingly enough, which is in Germany. So I flew out, did an internship that was all the biggest sound designers, filmmakers in the world that do behind the scenes work on television shows, movies, and games in the sound and music realm. And I worked with them, and Randy Tom was super interested in just the way I thought of the world, the way I found creative sounds here and there. We did some, you know, field trip things where I was getting very creative with banging on certain stuff and, you know, manipulating the world to get certain sounds that I already knew were there, but I was kind of, you know, bring them out from the world. And so that was my first like major breakthrough in the industry. And then ever since then, I've kept that creative energy and that storytelling mentality. So a few years ago, as Gunnar mentioned, I became involved with Digimarcon. And I was invited to do this as a showrunner and take kind of all my skills and talents of, you know, the technical side of the setup and tear down, but also people management, and then overseeing kind of the whole conference as a whole. And so I did that, and I loved it. And it gave me a chance to go a couple years and see the world. So I went to New Zealand, I went to Australia, I went to Canada. I've just been all over the place, all over the US. And it was such an eye-opening experience, especially as someone who's very creative, to be thrust into the world. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have visions and dreams within you, and it's another to see them come alive in the world around you. So the last few years, I've been working very strongly on some television shows and film projects, and I'm currently in talks with some actors and producers in the Hollywood space that are high level to get these things produced. But I have taken that core mentality of be amazed about the world and take that with you everywhere you go and to everything I've done. And I love Gunnar's book, I have to say, because as I was reading it, I just felt myself at each of those stages going, okay, yeah, all right, I've been at this stage, I've been at this stage, I've been at this stage, and I'm actually kind of going through reinvention right now. So it deeply resonated with me, and I think it'll impact many people.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. Because that also shows that you, particularly as a traveler with open eyes, you can see the world with completely different eyes. And there's one thing what I will add into the post that goes alongside this, the LinkedIn Live, and that is a video that you just created, a 2-minute long exploration, being a cinematic alchemist, and how we can shape the world through stories. So, and that shows also your way of reinvention, because if you would only sit in the same place, it would not happen. So what's your take on deliberate type of reinvention that you have, particularly from seeing the world with different eyes from different areas?
Absolutely. So tips to the audience would be even small changes can have massive impact. So things like if you go to that one coffee shop every week, don't change it up, go to a different place. In fact, take a vacation, go to another state, go to another country. It really does wonders for your mindset. It helps break you out of molds. It also enables you not just to see other cultures, but see how other cultures see your culture. And as Gunnar says, with the listening, that is so crucial, because it's one thing to sort of step into an experience and then bring yourself into it and be like, oh, well, here's me and my experience. This is how I relate. It's better to kind of shelve that and become a bit of a chameleon and just sit back and take it in. So something like when I went to New Zealand, I was very impressed with the strength and the culture. So, you know, the haka that they do, the natives that have that powerful energy where they go up and they do a chant with their full body and represent their soul and their passion, but it's in like a dance and a spoken and almost like a musical form. And so seeing that live and being able to participate in a small way in some of these cultural things was just an incredible experience for me, because it allows you to see the world with fresh eyes. And as something I alluded to in my little short video is when you travel, the stories actually find you. It becomes less about trying to reinvent things from scratch or look under certain crevices and hunt for them. It's more like they just start appearing everywhere, and you start noticing them. And you see them everywhere. You see them at the pubs. You see them just walking down the street. You see them in the nature. You see them in, you go and you take the public transit. And these things influence you subconsciously to start shaping the way that you, like the chisel, like he talked about, where you start just taking little pieces here and there and reinventing even small ways about yourself. And so if you can view the world in sort of almost a childlike manner, like full of awe and wonder. And that's what my brand Cinematic Alchemism is about, really. It's about being able to reach the stars with a ladder and not with a map. So it's this idea of direct experience of cinematic alchemy. So that idea of taking that into the world and letting those experiences inform you will be a massive change. And this can happen anywhere. You don't always need to go on a 5-hour plane flight to do this. You can even do it in your own town. Just change up your routine. Change up your schedules, go do something you haven't done before, especially like if you're not a night person, go do something nighttime. If you're not a day person, go do something daytime. Do something to change it up, and you will be pleasantly surprised at how it makes you grateful for what you have, but also enables you to start seeing other possibilities in the future and not get stuck into a box.
So I grabbed this screenshot from the video, which really shows not only we find bravery and somewhere along the way, then you continue talking, but just the way how you showcase yourself there, the excitement that comes in there, that was actually really what resonates with me. So then I took the freedom to add a couple of things about my book, and I presented on Monday. And when that is properly edited, then of course I will happily share that further. So you gave a lot of tips to the audience. There's one thing maybe which can be interesting, and that is this one. In a time of change, due to a trigger, we do not know the outcome. We don't have a safety net. And particularly you as an artist, I think many artists, being it actors, composers, I studied the classic ones like Mozart, your current one with great future ahead of you. How do you deal with the fact that you do not know the immediate future, let's say 3 to 6 months?
That is a very crucial and big point, right? Especially, this is huge for all actors and artists. And this is why for those few years, I did have that show running job that took me around and did things. It was nice to have that stability for a while, but you can't rely on it. The world is always changing. But the way that I always focus it is this. If you don't see already a role like as an actor that's already there for you, or a project where you can commission as a music composer, you're making stuff anyway. So even if the world isn't offering you positions, you are making them. So I'm always writing, I'm always creating, I'm always developing concepts and art and, very involved stories with all aspects of it. And especially in this idea of reinvention, when AI came up, a lot of people got afraid, and it was a big deal for many people, like, oh, we're going to lose our jobs. But for me, it was an opportunity. I chose to look at it and say, no, I'm not going to look at it as an obstacle. I'm going to say, how can this help me reach my goals? How can it help me create all these projects faster, more efficiently, keep track of continuity? So I built an entire engine from scratch that uses multiple aspects of AI, and it can even run offline. It doesn't need to plug into ChatGPT or anything. It can do its own off the grid work, but to keep track of the entire pipeline. So I would say keep that attitude everywhere you go. And when the earth shifts under you, don't look at it like, oh, well, it's not providing for me. Go, well, okay, I'm going to go make something now. And then when you present that to the world, doors just open for you. People love to see stories and creativity. And I think eventually people are going to really want that authenticity, because right now, yes, AI is kind of the hype, but it's a great tool. It's not a crutch. And when it gets to that point where people are like, oh, it's starting to replace, you'll feel it, and there'll be a pull back toward, no, we want soul-driven stories. And so the combination of those two is really powerful.
Yes, perfect. So thank you very much for these lines, for your contribution, and also for the inspiration. So many of us might have a visual canvas in their head of how they envision the world, but you are the one who shows this, and that's what really got me inspired. So thank you, Jedediah, very much, and also for your trust to encourage me to become a master of ceremonies at a big conference, and I really enjoyed that. No question. Thank you. So then,
absolutely,
I would like
to. It was fantastic connecting with you.
Thank you very much. So then, I would like to ask Sigrid onto stage, and Sigrid has a similar heritage like me when it comes to language and growing up in Germany. But funny thing is, Sigrid and I, we only speak English together because simply is more to the point. But that totally makes sense. So please quickly tell us more about yourself.
Hi, Gunnar. It's really great to be here and to be able to celebrate the launch of this particular book with you. And yes, we do have that same background, that heritage, Germany. And in my reinvention, what's happened early on was that throughout my entire childhood, the family around me talked about, you'll go to Australia one day. One day you'll go to Australia. Now that happened because my uncle moved over here into Australia in the 50s when there was a big drive for workers to come into this country. And I did make it eventually. And that change was just incredible. So the background of mine is like yours, Germany, but I had that vision the whole time to come to this country. And the main drive for me was, aside from the family talking about that, I love the warmth. I am in Brisbane, in Queensland, where we have that lovely subtropical climate up here. And that is what I'm really, really enjoying. So that's probably in a nutshell who I am and where I am. And my journey has been through a number of reinventions. I'll probably touch on that on a number of questions you are possibly going to ask me.
Yes, in particular, by the way, in the meantime, I placed there these comments with the link from Jedediah's video so that you can see this as well. You can see it later on LinkedIn as well. But quickly on your reinvention. So I know you are an expert who can write books, who help others doing the same. So that's how we initially got connected. But you have done something recently that you moved from, or, I mean, still you can help profession in that sense, but you now explored the world as a stage for global networking, which is a form of reinventing yourself again, right? So how did you make that happen?
So this is really interesting. As I said, there have been several reinventions for myself. Coming into Australia, the first one in my mid-20s, and having to adapt to the language and to, different customs over here. I knew English fairly well, but then the local terms that we have here were very new to me. I had to get that confidence in those days. But very quickly, I realized that there's a lot I can do here, much freer than where I've come from. I went into business. I started by buying businesses and selling them for profit, which was one part. Then I did start my own marketing agency, show the first reinvention from one type of business to another already. I discovered in the marketing agency how many people would benefit from writing a book. I had benefited from writing. I've got 4 books myself, and I used my books very specifically to grow a particular business. And from there, as you mentioned, we got to know each other that way through that area of expertise I was in. I thought last year, when the flow around the world and in technology with the introduction of AI really fully coming to all of us, I thought it's time to make sure that what I have gathered from my reinvention and that big move coming from one country to another and a different culture, the important is going to be we need to be humanly connected. That connection, that's always been something in my world that's made a big difference for me. And networking is just the way to do that, to bring together people from right across the world and explore how do you live? How do you do business? How does that affect your life? Coming together with different people each time when I have a networking event. Now, I particularly use networking and I live stream it, and I use LinkedIn as the platform at this point in time. So I think that is so exciting to talk to different people each time when I have an event from different countries, and the people will say in their comments what they took away. Everybody has a different takeaway from networking in a global atmosphere, in a global space. So networking for me is a kind of a where I have arrived after many different reinventions and different ways throughout the ability that I learned and had here in Australia to go into business for myself. And I really love the connection with people, particularly being able to do that online, even like we are having this wonderful launch for your book here today, that we can do that online. I don't have to pack the bags and, sit somewhere in airports and travel. This is great to do it virtually. And that is the type of networking I do, because it brings people together.
Yes, you mentioned it very nicely. That is, the world is in the meantime kind of a village, so to say, that we can get into people that, let's say maybe the pandemic gave us the need of connection, and tools like Zoom helped us also to make that happen. So very good. So, but it also underlines that curiosity is a big driving factor for you. So maybe at this stage, Sigrid, not everyone might be a big fan of doing networking this way online. Maybe they do a mix of online and occasionally go somewhere, which I love. I'm a big fan on the mix. If someone is maybe not living in a big city, like it's my case, and they do not have the chance to meet others face to face or in cafes, and they would like to explore the topic of networking, what tip can you give them? And I do not necessarily mean which light to buy from somewhere, but rather how to present themselves in a live scenario or even in just a one-on-one Zoom. Any tips which are more practical?
Look, I think it's really valuable to be networking in whichever way suits you. Now, if there are no local opportunities to go somewhere and network in person, do look online where you can do that. And I do understand that there is a bit of a hesitation for some people. Oh, I don't know how to behave online, how to talk there, what it's going to look like. It might look very different on video. I don't like myself on video. I think the biggest thing to overcome that is to go into it with an open mind. Firstly, the open mind about this could be an awesome opportunity for other people to hear who I am and what I do, and keep that who I am and what I do short and sharp. Figure out what's a really good introduction for you without going into your entire life that you've already lived. Pick out what's the most relevant one for what you are doing right now, and go with an open mind. I know you can use the word curiosity, you can use a whole range of different words for that. I like the term open mind because it implies to me personally, I'm open to receive what comes.
That sounds very nice. I really enjoyed listening to your contribution here, because it resonates so well with me. Thank you so much, Sigrid, for that, and looking forward to also seeing more on LinkedIn from your LinkedIn networking activities. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So then there's one thing what I would like to add on this stage also. When I came on and discovered that networking is a place to go, and let's face it, Australia is good for this because people have this open mind very often. Many came here from somewhere and they said, oh, who are you? What brings you here? And then learning the art of conversation and networking, not based on what I need, but rather the curiosity into others, that drove my interest in it. And then I realized at my first event, that particular day when I met Bassam, I saw that there was one guy, Philip, back then at Oracle, he talked about something that he would need. Well, and I wanted to find a role. So of course, that was not the right thing that I would ask him for, but then I recognized that there at the corner, there was someone called Sebastian, and he had actually an environment in what Philip wanted to learn more about it. So then after the event, I thought, I need to connect those two. And that is what I'm doing for 10 years, to try to connect people who otherwise would not have any chance to know of each other. And that for me is the networking aspect, deriving the curiosity, and the way how I do it is actually also writing, and that way it actually can work well. So sorry if I go further on that. So look here, let's go from the contribution. Thank you very much, Ritika. Thank you, Jedediah, and also thank you, Sigrid. So that's really good. You will see on the particular on LinkedIn, obviously, the links of the profiles of the three of you. So that is very good. But now let's quickly look into the ecosystem around the whole book topic. A quick way, how did I get into this? And that was here. This is 2018, and I contributed to a book from Samantha Jensen, who is the second on the right, called Leaders of Influence. We were all contributors. There were 6 authors, there's one on the left-hand side as well, plus Samantha. And I realized that a book launch is something very nice if you sit together with people who we know about it. So that was in Melbourne, and that was for me the starting point that a book can be published with real publishers, with the traditional ones, but then you don't have a launch. You can do self-published by yourself, but then you don't have this big thing here. So it needs to be some kind of hybrid work to make that happen. And one way for me to see this, I can quickly show this, is this one. So the typical way of how I wrote books, and I've published 33 of them, so will be needed later, is this. That's a travel guide, a guidebook about Prague. It's in German, from German publishers, and I've done many of those, larger, smaller, whatever it was. I looked into self-publishing. But think about 2004, it was not easy. So I wrote a book which is called Hollywood in Prague. This is an exceptional binding, not normal, which talks about all of the movies that have been directed, like Amadeus, like Mission Impossible. But self-publishing in 2004, long before Amazon KDP, that meant like this. Working at HP, I bought better paper. I cut it into 4 pieces. I would print first the odd pages, turn around, then the even pages, grab this, fly from Zurich to Prague, where the copy shop is better in binding, grab them, drive home from Switzerland to Germany, where most customs would be, put it in the post office and come back. Self-publishing. I've done 150 of them. Not a good idea. Later, I discovered that places like Amazon, KDP are there to explore that in a better way. And in the meantime, we also see that authors who self-publish build a brand and then have a chance to go further on, that can be a good thing. So an example is the forward. The forward is written by Veronica Lorca-Smith, who are now from Substack. And here is her book that she published on Penguin. That's one of the largest publishing houses in the world. Without her building a brand beforehand and publishing books on Amazon, it would not work. When I tried this 20 years ago, the publisher that I found locally said, don't even bother to try to do any self-publishing because it will be perceived as you can't find a real one. So good old days, huh? That's wrong mindset, and now it works much, much better. So, but in that sense, I really like the element of book launches. But let me tell you quickly about how this book came about. Last year on Saturday, not only the preparation of what I mentioned earlier, but a little bit beforehand, I read on this beautiful Easter Saturday evening in Coogee Beach in the eastern suburbs in Sydney, I read a book called Discipline from J.R. Heimbichner. And I thought, okay, discipline, yes. I now stop reading. I write a book like this as well, about 22,000 words, not too long, but a book that people can read. And I called it Happy Habits because apparently habits is a word in English and it is my last name. So that was very good. And it got its own Substack blogging platform to this and really enjoyed doing this. So that was for me the start, moving or adding something to it which is a bit more personal. So let me show you. I started writing business books, like these are my 2 LinkedIn books and a leadership book, a collection of stories. And I would position myself not as a book writing coach. Secret, you can help others better than that. But I'm a book architect. And I came on this term a little bit from Jedediah's video when he said, also his introduction at the beginning, I'm a cinematic alchemist. I tell stories and so on. And I came on this as a book architect. I'm not the builder, but I can help build. So these are 3 of them. And then I thought, well, there's some fiction that most of us have in us, some stories that we can create a fiction book. So I wrote 2 fairy tales. One maybe 16 years ago, finally self-published. That's my covers, but the image is from ChatGPT. It looks pretty good. I'm very proud about that one. And the third one I wrote for my mother's 81st birthday this year in April, and need to enrich and put it into English as well. I like modern fairy tales. Very, very fun to write. And then I have Happy Habits that I showed before. How to even create a cover. So I crowdsourced this to my Substack community. I created one with a little bit different color, 3 versions with different elements. And I got maybe, 30 responses. And there were equally 10 So I couldn't rely on any winner. I went back to ChatGPT and I created the middle graphic inside of the cover, and therefore also the colors are chosen. And then I just had my book number 32, which is the workbook to this in yellow, and more to come. Nothing beats having good series. And then now we have Reinvent Down Under. And the way of how I write books, I actually write them backwards. That doesn't mean from right to left, but I first think, if possible, at the launch, and then at the impact, and then the concept, which tells me, oh, I need to really produce a book. But the whole setting and everything comes first. While many authors, they start writing for years and they wonder that they never arrive. So I take it more that way. And this Write Your Book Backwards, I'm hopefully finalizing as a book in maybe July. So that will be number 34. But now we have Reinvent Down Under. So it is nice to see a book also in a kind of a mock-up. And for those of you who know the software called Canva, so then it's a typical Canva mock-up. And I thought, hang on, everyone can download this. You can put anything like a poster of your event on that. But I said, well, I think I know the place. And for those who know Sydney, that is Circular Quay where the cruise ships are landing. And that is exactly my bus stop. When I take the ferry, go to the city, and from here I wait for the bus that brings me further. So now my book is here. So funny. I like playing with this part of AI. So that's good. So the key question, of course, is how to get the book. So this is when I had the launch and all of the books arrived. We had 50 plus people in the room. I had maybe 60 books over there. And in the meantime, the book is also on Amazon as paperback, but also as the Kindle version. And at this stage, it is actually for a pretty good price. For introduction price, the ebook for 99 cents. So therefore, if you could just grab this link from that leads to Amazon, and it leads to maybe your market. So then, Jedediah, if you would click on this, then the link leads you directly to Amazon.com because you're in the US. And Sigrid, when you click on it, it gets you to Amazon.com.au, to the Australian one. Ritika, there is no New Zealand Amazon, but at least it gets you somewhere. The closest one where you would normally have your environment, your Kindle library. So that's how that technically would work. So then, so here we have all of you again, and I really like the unpacking. So I took a quick video about the unpacking of the book. You see this with some other authors. It is this exciting moment that something comes to life, which is kind of having a birth of the product, of the project, of all what happened to there. And that for me is really a nice place to have. So if you could be so kind and click this link. Of course, every book author is keen to find out, can that book rank somehow? Is it possible to get it out into the ranking system of Amazon, which is the bestseller or the new releases? And I had a couple of bestsellers in the past. Quick one, this book that I showed beforehand, which is this Prague on food, this spiral base. I think it came out first time in 2016, the latest version just before the pandemic, and it became 2 years ago a #1 bestseller, not of any launch because it already existed. But I bet there was anywhere in Germany a teacher who told the students, "Hey guys, we do a class trip to Prague. All 30 of you need to buy the book." And all of a sudden became a bestseller because real people bought the book from Amazon. The publisher didn't even know about it. Maybe not even bother. So that's quite funny. So also added now the link here is this one there, reinventdownunder.com/Amazon to get that. We was keen to have some more. And do you know the biggest currency in book marketing? And I call it currency. Or let's say maybe it's two. The first one is a review. To get Amazon reviews is not the easiest thing to do. And the second one is to grab email addresses from those readers who like to read the book and maybe are ready to share testimonials. And that is actually pretty difficult to get that. So I remember this by myself. So if somebody would like to, for example, get a book like my Happy Habits book, let me just see how that would look like. They also have a link, and I tried to do a different approach on this one. When somebody would like to get into a book, that gives them a little bit more. So then for the other one that I just added there, happyhabit.com/book, that goes not to Amazon, that goes into my own book funnel where you can type in your email address and you get something more, kind of a couple of goodies on it. I will do this for Reinvent Down Under as well. So everyone who is getting the Reinvent Down Under book from here tells me who they are or that they got it, please let me know, and some of the goodies will come your way as well, including the story, how I came on this, how I created this, a couple of video elements, and also a piece of music from our good friend Jedediah, because I created a little video on promoting this book that I showed on stage on Monday, also to showcase the fantastic work that he created. So that's about that book. But there's one little thing. So I built an online course, and I'll show you where that actually was. I had it here in this image. One moment, comes shortly. Where was it? This one here. For my last book, Happy Habits, I created Happy Habits in Action. I don't have a course for Reinvent Down Under, but I thought, in addition to reading, which is the visual aspect, many would like to learn also by adding a video aspect to it, and maybe a couple of more practical things, like more checklists to it, more reflection to it. So I created this course, Happy Habits in Action, which is currently in the value of $47 US. We'll go to 77. I like this type of numbers. But there will be one of us, to get the right slide number, who will also have the chance to win one of those. And I will therefore need to ask one question. So, how many books did I publish? The first one who comments on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube will be the one who get that. I hope you're still there. So how many books did I publish so far? So let's see if some answers come in over there. So I put the question as well. How many books did I publish so far? I think I gave the number. And looking forward, if anyone's still there who can tell us this, that would be good. If you even do it later, these comments are public, so then you can add something later. So whoever is the first one to do this and give me this one single number. And there's it's even written in the books. And for those who have been in there to get get on the waiting list, even the form for the waiting list, the URL had the same type of number. It's not the easiest answer, but you will see it, and I hope that anyone will get that shortly. No, not 5, not 3, many more. They're not all of them on the slide, but I said it in the call twice, 3 times maybe. And I also said the next book, which number it will have, which is 34. Okay, let's see who gets on the number. So what else can I say? So that was what I wanted to share for today. And what I would like to also say at this stage, a big thank you to Ritika, to Jedediah, and to Sigrid. It was a pleasure to connect on a global scale, on a global stage, New Zealand, Australia, and the US. And to be honest, Jedediah, traveling all over the place, grabbing stories from everywhere, you are a global person, and you are at home wherever home pulls you in. And thank you for your nice lines about the book as well. So that's what I wanted to share while waiting still for the answer of how many books it was. And of course, yeah, the next one will be number 34. Okay, maybe somebody grabs this. And thank you, everyone, for making this a big pleasure to run this as a LinkedIn Live today to launch my latest book called Reinvent Down Under. And you can place it for you. Hey, Natalie, you got it? You got it. It's number 33. You're right. So then you will get that video. You will get a couple of other things that I'm preparing for that one as well. And you get this online course called Happy Habits in Action, which I actually recorded recently in my own little home studio that is behind. And you will receive this. By the way, speaking of recording, I'm not sure about your part of the world. In Australia, some council libraries have quite good rooms. So the one here, 6 kilometers away, they have a modern recording studio for podcasts, for live videos, and for audiobooks. So last week, Saturday, I recorded the whole book, Reinvent Down Under, and I will make it available as an audiobook. I would like to get it on Audible, so I had to have good quality on it. So that's Reinvent Down Under. First 10 years in Sydney, and let's see what the next 10 years will bring in the world. Thank you, Vitika, Jedediah, and Sigrid for joining. Everyone else there on the world, thank you as well for participating. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best, Gunnar.